So where else can you go to church one Sunday and have rock and roll Sunday and the next Sunday have Claire de Lune? Oh, thank you so much for asking. They were bringing unto him little children, and the disciples rebuked them. Jesus turned and he looked and he said, "Let the children come unto me, for to such belong the kingdom of God." They went on to say, "You cannot enter the kingdom of God unless you become like one of these little children." Happy Father's Day. I'm ready for Father's Day. I've got my Father's Day mug at home in that special place. I dare not drink out of it because it's got to stay in that special place. I have my Father's Day tie on. It's got pictures of my grandson all over the tie. Many of you have heard my sock story, but I have an addendum to it. I think it was about a year ago, my grandson drew a picture of me in striped socks. And I don't have striped socks. And so we asked him, "Dorian, why is Grandpa in striped socks?" "Grandpa loves striped socks." So the next day we went to the store. We went to the mall, and the first pair of socks we got weren't striped. They were red with a robot on them. But we went from store to store to store, and I bought striped socks. And I have this big collection of striped socks. Well, the rest of the story is about 6 months later, Dor came to me. I was wearing my striped socks. He said, "Grandpa, why don't you wear just one color sock?" So, it's Father's Day. What are you going to do? Well, I put the red sock on one foot and the one color sock on the other foot. So, I want to acknowledge all of you fathers out there. Fathers, they come in all shapes and sizes and descriptions, and sometimes it's a father, sometimes it's not literally a father, but a father figure, maybe an uncle or a granduncle, maybe a grandparent. Not all fathers are male. But what I'd like to do is, if you're a father in any way, shape, or form, would you please stand just so we can acknowledge you? All fathers, please stand. We still remain standing. So if you're grandfathers, remain standing. Grandfathers. And do we have any great-grandfathers? If you're a great-grandfather, remain standing. Great-grandfathers. What a gift it is to be a father or grandfather or great-grandfather. For all you fathers today, when you leave our service, the kids are going to have a very special card for you that they have made up. So make sure you pick one up as you're walking out of the doors today. As I was thinking about Father's Day, I was thinking about that passage in the Bible. It's found in Luke, and it's also found in Mark, where Jesus was there, and all these mothers they wanted Jesus to touch their children. And some translations say infants, some say little children. So just imagine the babies. And these mothers wanted Jesus to touch the babies. And so they're bringing them to him, and Jesus and the disciples, like most adults, said, no, stop. Jesus doesn't have time for that. Just leave him alone. He's got more important things to do. And so that's when Jesus looked up and he said, "Oh, let the children come to me." I mean, Jesus at that point put children at the very center of the universe. He said, "Let the children come to me, for to them belong the kingdom of God." And if you want to experience the kingdom of God, then you too need to become like a child. We forget this sometimes. I went to some Bible researchers, some Bible scholars, to find out why they said that you had to become like a child in order to enter the kingdom of God. And almost all of them said there's two things that you've got to do. They said, notice with children, they're very receptive. Children, as they're growing up, they're like a sponge. They will absorb absolutely everything that is sent their way. And then the other thing they said was that they're very dependent. They have a dependent upon you as the father, as the parent, as the grandfather, to help them move through their lives. And, if something wonderful goes on in their lives, they'll come running in. They'll have the biggest smile on their face. If they fall and get a scratch and start bleeding, what do? They come running in and they hold up their finger and they want you to put a Band-Aid on. Well, you don't put just Band-Aids on anymore. They are SpongeBob SquarePants bandages or Spider-Man or just any kind of hero bandages. Our medicine cabinet's full of them. It's sort of embarrassing now. If I cut myself, I have to wear a SpongeBob SquarePants bandage, but, it's okay. It really, really is okay. So I've been thinking a lot about kids and their dependence on us, and I've been thinking about what it means to be a parent and to realize that a lot of what we do is really for our next generation. Being a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, a mother, an aunt, an uncle, working with the children is the most important thing that we do. We have a real obligation. I've had several father influences in my life. My dad, of course, who's still alive, he probably working in his garden right now, just in Paulsbo, Washington, across the bay from Seattle. My dad wasn't home a lot when I was growing up. And I didn't realize till recently that I spent a large part of my life, even into my adult years, looking for a father figure. And my father was great. He was a wonderful father, but where he wasn't home, I kept looking for this father figure. I found one father figure in a man named Marvin Kellis. Marvin was at the Unity Church I grew up in, Unity Church of Overland Park, Unity Church of Truth in Spokane, Washington. And Marvin was one of those people that if you needed an usher, he was an usher. You needed a greeter, he was a greeter. You need the lawn mowed, he mowed the lawn. He was a sheet metal worker by trade, but he also had a goat farm. And when I was in college, I worked on his goat farm. And I probably learned more about unity and truth working on that goat farm than I did in ministerial school. He taught me a lot, and one thing he taught me was the importance of being grounded in absolutely everything that you do. He said that the ills of the world would all be solved if people would just take their shoes and socks off and walk barefoot through his barnyard. Imagine what you're walking on. To be grounded in everything. Not all the father figures in my life have I known personally. There's one in particular that I want to share with you today. I've never known this man. I have read 3 of his books. He's written, I think, 4. And I bought these books maybe 10 or 15 years ago and read them and put them on a shelf and just left them there. And then about 3 weeks ago, I was drawn back to one of them. I have no idea why, but I picked it up and I opened it up and I just started reading it. And the man's name is James Krenov, Krenov, and he was an artisan. He worked in wood. Wood was his medium for doing his masterpieces. And his books are about creating masterpieces. His books are about creating masterpieces in wood. But if you really read them, and if you talk to some of the critics who reviewed his books, they will tell you that his books are about creating masterpieces in life. His books are about giving lessons to your children to create masterpieces in your children. And so I went through his book, this one, The Cabinet Maker's Notebook, and I just read through this again. And I found out that it's absolutely true. And he talks about wood as a medium. He talks about life and how to go through life successfully. He talks about his woodworking tools. I think planes were his favorite tool. He talks about saws, but he talks about the tools of life and the tools that you and I can use to work with our children to bring about a wonderful and amazing life. Excuse me a moment. I've got these things here. So anyway, he talks about these wonderful, wait a minute. Would you just hold on to that for me, please? They're sort of in the way. Just take care of that one for me, thank you. I'll be back. He said, James Krefnow said in his book, he said, there's two ways of doing things. And in Unity, I found this to be exactly true. He said there's two ways of doing things to create masterpieces in your life. We can do like is done up on the screen or on the cover of your bulletin. We can decide that we want a toolbox in life, right? You see that young child, and probably his father, and they're creating a toolbox. My grandfather was a cabinet maker. And this is how he created. My grandfather could do anything. He could sheetrock a house, he could make a desk. And people would call him up and they'd say, I would like a desk out of cherry. My grandfather would get up and he'd go to the wood store, he'd buy cherry, come back, go over the plans with the person who wanted the desk, and they'd create it. And my grandfather created masterpieces. I have a regret, I do not have any of his masterpieces. I don't have any of his tools. And I really wish that I did. James Krefnow looks at things differently. He looks at another way of creating masterpieces. He would bring home a log or a piece of wood, and he'd put it in his shop. And he'd look at it. And he'd say, you know, there's a richness there. He would study it, sometimes for years. He said, I'm going to let it tell me what the creation should be. He said, you know, every piece of wood is a curiosity. Everyone is different from the next. And as he lived with that piece of wood, it became absolutely woven into his experience. And the wood would say to him, I want to be a cabinet, I want to be a box, whatever it is. And in Unity, we may create masterpieces in both ways, the way James Krefnow did, the way my grandfather did. Think about it. Think about it. In Unity, in your life, have you ever set a goal? You know, you set that goal, it's like creating the design, knowing that you want a toolbox. You set it, and then you treasure map it, you vision map for it, and you go out and just draw everything to you to absolutely create that vision. And you do create a masterpiece. That's one way to do it, and it's a wonderful way to do it. Another way in Unity we talk about is you surrender. You just let go and see where life takes you. And that's what James Krefnow did. He just surrendered to the richness in that piece of wood. Well, I was thinking about that. And when I was a father, I'm still a father, but when my child was growing up, I probably was more direct. I probably said, you're going to be a toolbox. As a grandfather, it's much more relaxed. And I'm looking at the richness to be found in my grandson. And I become aware of the richness to be found in all of our children. You know, their lives are sort of a curiosity, and everyone is different from the next one. And some of these kids have knots in their lives. And you know, sometimes for a woodworker, you want to cut the knot out. And sometimes you want to take that knot and enhance it and make it into a beautiful, beautiful masterpiece. I become aware of these kids, and as I live with my grandson and experience him, he becomes a part of my experience. He becomes woven into my very essence. You know, raising a child brings along great personal discoveries. It's a time of wonderful possibility. And we say in a lot of our christening services, we say, you know, we don't need to make them any more amazing than they already are, because our kids are truly amazing just the way we are. And so, you know, as a grandparent, I've learned to sit and just be with them. I've learned to let him speak to me and to let him decide what it is that he wants to do. Now, kids do take direction and guidance, and I'll be the first to admit that. But also, there's that essence of them that just needs to march to the beat of their own drummer, if you will. James Krefnow talks a little bit about this. He talks about the beauty, and he says, and again, he's talking about woodworking, but he said, many of the things I make are not treated in any way afterwards, because nothing I can put on them will enhance the beauty of their naturalness. Nothing I can put on them will enhance the beauty of their naturalness. Folks, it's the same with our children. You know, life at times can be one of struggle, it can be one of discovery, it can be one of secret satisfactions. Life can bring with it disappointments and hopes and surprises. And we just need to be aware of the tools that we need to use to move through these experiences. So I want to give you some tools today, some tools of the trade, if you will. If you're on the internet at all, they will tell you that there's only two tools that any person needs as they go through life. If it's falling apart, duct tape. If it's not working, WD-40, right? Those are the only tools that you need. Well, working with kids and I'm going to tell you a secret, the tools I'm about to give you, you can use in your own life. You don't have to use it just with kids. It works very well. There's actually 3 tools that I want to share with you. And these I've actually learned from just being around kids. The first one, be open to miracles. Just be open to miracles. Remember when your child or your nephew or your niece or a kid that you were with saw a bird for the first time? Remember that and how amazed they were. Or they saw a bug for the very first time. Or the dandelion puffs. Think about that. What do they do with dandelion puffs when they see them for the first time? They pick them and they hold them up, and much to your neighbor's chagrin, they blow. And the seeds spread absolutely everywhere. They see the miracle in absolutely everything. You know, Sally Taylor was here last week, and she talked a lot about seeing the miracle. She used different terms. But she was talking about challenges, and I think about children and challenges, and if we could become like a child, and as the challenges come our way, just see the miracle that's there within that challenge. Sally gave us 4 points from Joel Goldsmith. I know that all of you weren't able to get them. I know we ran out last week, and I think we still have some more out in the lobby. So if you didn't get one last week and get it there, you can go online and listen to Sally's talk. But the first point that she shared with you is to me all about miracles. She said, love God with all your heart. Acknowledging God is the only power, and that there is no power in effect. That God is the only power. If you're going through a challenge, folks, what's the truth? God is the only power. If you're experiencing lack in your life, what would happen if you took the tool and said, this thought of lack has no power over me? I believe in miracles. If you're going through a challenge with your health, this challenge has no power over me. I believe in miracles. Whatever the challenge, this thought has no power over me. God is the only power. You know, answers will come. If you're going through a challenge, I just want you to know that answers are going to come, but you've got to do the work until they do. Okay. Second tool. Another thing with children, you take children outside and they get down, they bend down. You notice how the rear ends almost touch the ground? Yeah, I can't do that anymore. But they'll reach down and they'll pick something up. They'll pick like a rock up. And what do? They turn it over. They look to the underside of things. Second tool, look to the underside of things. Take life and look at it from a different perspective. Even better than the underside, look within things. Look within yourself. See what's within yourself. Become aware of the very essence of God within you. So become aware of the miracles in your life, the simple everyday miracles. Look to the underside of things. The third tool. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you very much. And you too. Thank you so much. Yeah. The third tool is mistakes happen. They do. Anybody here never have a mistake in your life? Okay, mistakes happen. 2 weeks ago, Dorian's out of school now for the summer. He's 6 years old, so I have him Friday mornings for about an hour and a half. And so Dorian and I go to the mall, and once a week I'm not a coffee drinker, but once a week I do get a black and white mocha with whipped cream. And so I go in and get that. And Dora was with me in this place where I get my black and white mochas with whipped cream. They have kids' drinks too, and one of the kids' drinks is a not-so-hot chocolate. And so Dorian goes in, and he says with me, and he says, I would like a not-so-hot chocolate. And so they pull out the kids' cup and pass it over to be filled, and Dorian looks up at me, and he said, Grandpa, I'm 6 years old. Can I have a real cup? And so I talked to them, and they said, can we put this in a real cup? And they said, absolutely. So they put his not-so-hot chocolate in a real cup, and there we are. You can just imagine grandfather and grandson walking along the mall drinking our drinks. And we turn the corner and head towards his favorite store, the Lego store. And as we're walking along, and he's got his cup, it drops out of his hand. There is not-so-hot chocolate everywhere. Okay. You ever have those moments when life just stops? It just stopped at that moment for me, and I thought, okay, this is a real important time for you. What can you do about this? And I had 3 thoughts. The first thought was, well, I can say to him, Dorian, you are only 6 years old, and you really need to have the child's cup. That was the first thought that came to me. And then the second thought that came to me was, you can be like the woman over there who's dragging her 4-year-old son into the woman's clothing store, and the 4-year-old is screaming and yelling, and the woman is yelling back, saying, if you don't be quiet, I'm going to take you home right now. And I was thinking, okay, a 4-year-old, do I want to go into a clothing store? Do I want to go home and play? You know? So I thought, well, I could yell at Dorian and say, can't you be more careful of things? And then it hit me. Mistakes happen. So I looked at Dorian, and I said, let's clean this up. So we went into the store, and we asked them to bring the maintenance people out and to clean it up. So Dorian and I continued our journey down to the Lego store. And as we came back, we passed the very spot, which not too long ago had not-so-hot chocolate all over it. And it was nothing there. And I turned to Dorian, and he looked up at me. I can't show you what he did because this is the super secret grandpa-grandson handshake. But we gave each other the super secret grandpa handshake, saying, it's okay. Mistakes happen. Clean them up and move on with your life. So 3 tools. Yeah. 3 tools. Look for the miracles. Look for the underside of things, the other side, the within side, and realize that your mistakes are going to happen. It's okay. Clean them up and move on. I will tell you that we did go again this Friday. He had, this time he had strawberry moo, which is strawberry-flavored milk, in a regular cup, and he did fine. And if he would have spilled it, you know what? It would have been okay. We would have cleaned it up. We would have moved on. Okay. In a few minutes, we're going to have a bunch of kids come in here. They're going to come up here on stage. And some of the kids are going to be standing like this. And some of the kids are going to be standing like this. Some of the kids are going to hold hands during the peace song. Some are going to stand like this during the peace song. Some of the kids are going to have their fingers up their nose, and you as their parent are going to be going. You know, we see all of that from up here, so yeah. It's okay. It's okay. Become you like one of them. See the miracles. Look to the other side of things. Clean up the messes. It's okay. And then when you get home today, if you have a child anywhere near you, hug that child. Or at least pull out a picture of a child and look into the eyes. And as you look into the eyes, just know you are looking into the eyes of God. Happy Father's Day.